At a time when the life of the city was surrounded by city walls, the Rječina met the sea on today's Filičić, which was further north than it is today. In this place, sand and silt were deposited, which came from the upper side of the river, forming a series of sandbanks, river islands, and reefs. These small reefs, that is, islets, gave their name to the space that is today Filičić, or Spoleto in Italian. Later in the 19th century, Filičić was an access point to the city where the customs office was located, the place where the Hungarian Honvéd barracks were located, and the place where you can moor your horse after a long trip.
It was time of rise and growth of the city, rapid industrialization and the arrival of the railway to the city. By passing Rječina in 1873, the railway delineated the city center from the area of the city's first industrial zone, which began to develop around today's Ružićeva and Vodovodna Street in the 19th century. From some elevated point, an observer of the early 20th century would witness a forest of slender industrial chimneys, bordered by a steep and dramatic canyon formed by a small and never-getting dry river of Rijeka.
Ružićeva Street runs on the left bank. Upstream, the Rječina River through from downtown Sušak up to the first factories. It is named after Đuro Ružić, a versatile local fellow born in the Ružić village near Kirigin, close to Rijeka. In his dynamic life, he did many things. He was leather craftsman, landowner, manufacturer and house owner, cultural worker, mayor, and patriot. Among other things, Ružić was an industrialist and a man of great influence who indebted the society with his actions and shaped his region. After him, one of the two streets of the city's formal industrial zone was named.
When you pass under the railway bridge, one will begin to move away from the hustle and bustle of the city, which will be weaker and weaker as one goes deeper into the canyon. In this street today, along with the scarce number of tenants, there are also smaller factories, but not nearly as much as it used to be once when ice, soap, shoes, leather, peeled rice were produced in that area and mills grinded grain. Over the years, the former noise of the machines has been replaced by occasional voices of the youth and riddled with sporadic noise of cars.
Right at the beginning of the Ružićeva Street, there was a soap factory of industrialist Josip Heindelhofer. It started in 1885, at a time when awareness of hygiene was growing along with the fear of infections, such as that of cholera that could befall the city. In such circumstances, the soap became an increasingly sought-after item. Today, walking upstream the river to this place, an observer comes to the parking lot, at the end of which there is a bench next to Rječina. After taking a seat there, after a moment or two, one may hear a murmur of water that is no longer to be heard downstream at the downtown.
In the Bakarčić-Simončić building, erected in 1877, there was a tan leather and sole factory of the same family name, which exported its products throughout the Habsburg monarchy and beyond its boundaries. At first, working as a manufactory, the Tannery constantly expanded the volume of business, particularly at the beginning of the 20th century, remaining all the time owned by the family. However, changes on the market caused by World War I, as well as the redrawing of borders, led to the liquidation of the plant in 1925. A rice peeling plant with a large production capacity soon moved into its premises. The raw material was immediately processed at the place of import, that is, the port, and was imported from America, Egypt, India, and Italy. The building has been preserved until today, and it houses the supermarket of the Plodine retail chain.
Prior to miniaturizing the technique, the machines were large, often too large to be used in the household. Refrigeration devices, which are now unavoidable in the household, appeared more massively only after World War II. At the end of the 19th and in the early 20th century, the growing city counted more and more mouths to feed. This entailed the question of storing and preserving food, for which ice proved the best choice. Ice, however, was difficult to produce, and therefore Milan Gorup, an entrepreneur of Slovenian origin, started his ice production in Ružićeva Street at the end of the 19th century, the so-called Ledana or ice plant. The plant had most success between the two world wars, during the period of growth of Sušak, when it produced ice for meat preservation.
Despite giving space to new minor manufacturing facilities, and despite its proximity to the city center, Ružićeva Street has developed into a destination for Rijeka's cultural and independent scene, and a place for going out of young people who are increasingly discovering the potentials, stories, and picturesqueness of Rijeka's industrial heritage.